Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter. This is, of course, the podcast where we talk with advocates and members of the disability community to educate and inspire better conversation about disability. Hey, my name is Rob Minot, and joining me today is Mr. Cowbell himself, Ryan Fleury.
No, today I'm Mr. Sad.
Why?
Because I didn't find anything worth buying for Black Friday or Cyber Monday.
Oh, yeah, you didn't, eh?
I didn't buy a thing.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
And Christmas shopping is done, so there is that.
Well, I made up for it this year because I actually bought a computer because mine died.
Three or four of them died.
Thanks to Microsoft and their damn Windows 11.
Put Linux on them.
Pull the trigger and get a new one. So
What
I
about
used
Mac?
oh, shut up with it. Sick of hearing that. Now you're Mr. Mac because you got a 12-year-old Mac donated by your neighbor,
And it's more solid than Windows.
I think he's a cook. No, it's so I made a purchase on Cyber Monday, so it's exciting.
It is exciting. You'll have something that isn't going to blue screen on you every 10 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be nice. That will be nice. It's not nice in the pocketbook, but yeah, it's having a machine that I feel confident that it's not going to blue screen on me every 15 minutes is going to be nice. It's going to be nice. I can finally take my finger off the save button on everything. That'll be great.
Excellent. Exciting times.
It is exciting times. It's true. What's new with you this week over there?
Well, this week we started our Advent calendar that we do with our pets every December 1st, counting down till Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Yep.
Man, it's really interesting. We are truly in the autumn of our life when the big news is that about the pet Advent calendar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's great. That is good news.
And we have a Christmas party coming up. That's exciting.
Yeah, that'll be good. We'll play the game. How much tequila will Rob drink this year?
Oh, is it your turn again?
It might be. I think it might be. Yeah.
Excellent.
So, great. We'll have an update not next week, but the week after, probably. All right. Well, shall we get started? Because I'm fairly excited about today's show because we got some returning friends of the show with us. So let's get right to it. So tell the fine folks at home, Ryan, just what the heck we're doing today.
Well, all the way from Outlook on Radio Western, we have Brian and Kerry Kijewski returning to AT Banter. Welcome back to the show, friends.
Hello.
Hey now.
Hey
Great to be
now.
back.
Hey now.
Hey now.
And you've also brought along a surprise guest. So, Kerry, do you want to introduce him?
Yeah, well, we refer to him on our show as BF Barry, which BF standing for boyfriend / best friend.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's our sometimes third co-host of the show. He's just got a great radio presence, and we've known him for a long time. So he's a great addition when he's able to join us, and people want a break from just the two of us, which is probably often.
That's where I say hello.
Yes. That was your cue, my friend.
Nice to meet you.
So all of you, welcome back. Well, not all of you, I guess. Two of you, welcome back, and one of you, welcome. But for anybody who maybe missed the last time that you guys are on, maybe each of you could just sort of go around and give us a short version of who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, I am Kerry, the female of the group, and Brian and I are returning guests to AT Banter, and so I'm the older sister, and yeah, we've been doing our radio show / podcast since 2018. And yeah, I can't believe it's been so long since we've been on, but I prefer this time of year. Definitely the beginning of December is sort of my favorite time of year, minus all the sales and things. So yeah, as far as the Outlook podcast, I came up with the idea sort of in its first iteration, and I am the female perspective, the older sister perspective, and yeah, I'm a writer and an advocate, and I've recently gotten into audio description work, and so yeah, I've done quite a bit since. It's hard to imagine it and think of it until I really focus and think. But everything I've been up to since we were last on with you guys. But yeah, I got a lot going on at the moment. It seems like never a dull day. Um, but yeah, I love this time of year. So I've got more energy than I would have last time on the show, possibly, which would have been in the middle of summer.
All right, yeah, I'll go next. We'll save the new personality for
Yeah,
last.
that's right.
So yeah, it's been since 2022 we were on the show, so it's great to be back. And as Kerry mentioned, there were siblings. So I'm Kerry's younger brother, 3 years younger. I'm 38 years old, and we've been doing Outlook, yeah, for 7 years. So we've recently celebrated our 300th episode. For those who don't know, Outlook is a radio show first and foremost. Accessibility, advocacy, equality are our three themes. We're both blind. We've both also had kidney transplants. I forget if we talked about that last time, but it might be an interesting topic to get into a little bit today. And yeah, I love doing the show Outlook, which people can find Outlook on Radio Western. Just search it up on any podcast service or email us anytime, Outlook on Radio Western at gmail.com. But I love the radio show perspective of it because nothing wrong with podcasts, of course. We're on one, and I love podcasts. But there's something about the immediacy and the live radio that I really love about the fact that our show airs first on Radio Western, which is a university station out of London, Ontario. And it airs there first Monday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and then we upload it as a podcast after. So I also love the live stuff because I'm an audio engineer and editor. So when we do the pre-records from home occasionally, I do enjoy it because I love Pro Tools. It's very accessible with voiceover on my Mac and editing. But there's something nice about just doing it live, and you can't change it. You can't go back and edit anything. It's done. And I love that about life because I think, especially these days, everything is so often processed or edited or over the top, made to be a certain way. And I like that reality of it's real life, right? Nothing's perfect. Nothing's going to be how you expect oftentimes. So that's what I do like about that format. But aside from the show, I'll just quickly mention that I'm a musician. I've been playing guitar since I was 9. So like almost 30 years at this point. I've been in probably a dozen different bands over the years. Music is my main other interest. So I also host a music radio show that I've been doing since 2017, and I recently celebrated 8 years with that. And it's called Chin Music, and it's Fridays on Radio Western, the same station we do Outlook. Barry.
All right, so my name's Barry. You guys call me Barry. And what would I say about myself? So I'm originally from the north of Ireland, in particular Belfast. And I'm currently on vacation in Canada. This is my 22nd time to this country. I've been coming here for 23, 24 years. I'm a former martial artist, quite a few different disciplines. My background's in computer science, so I have a couple of degrees in computer science and IT Pro certs. Worked for places like Apple and Liberty IT with software house for Liberty Mutual Insurance based out of the States. Big passions, I guess, would be, I know everyone says this, but world travel. I do like a lot of world travel. And I really, really enjoy psychology, in particular psychotherapy, and also philosophy. I like taking Eastern ancient wisdoms and boiling them down into our Western lifestyles. And yeah, I really, 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 really have got into AI in a big way over the last 2 years. And yeah, it's one of my big passions at this moment in time.
So, well, let's dive a little bit into the radio show because one of the reasons why we wanted to have you guys back on is the radio show itself. One of the great things about it is that it's you guys talk about so many different topics and so many important topics And, I just happened to be looking through the feed and giving some episodes a listen. And I told Ryan, I was like, we got to get them on again because there's just a lot's happened over the last few years. So on that note, and given that so much has happened over the past 2 years in terms of just the temperature of advocacy and accessibility, what has been sort of top of mind for you guys in terms of topics?
Well, I think for me, as somebody who, from my perspective, so the show's outlook, right? So Brian said our three main themes when we started the show in 2018, but now it's sort of evolved into intersectionality and interdependence, and also a multi-sensory approach to life, showing that there's not just this ocular-centric world is the word we use, ocular-centric, but the very visual world that most people kind of exist in. And if you have lost any of the sight you had in life, like myself, there's a lot of grief that is attached to that. But there's also a lot of wonder about that, and it opens doors for me constantly. But I just think, like, I'm discovering new layers of this stuff, and so for me, I talk a lot about, as I say, media representation, as someone who used to. For example, this time of year is all about lights, and I really miss that. But there's so many layers of this time of year that are multisensory that can be more than just the visual stuff. So for media stuff, it's like I used to love. So one of the things Barry and I bond over is our love of TV and movies, and there is so much out there to consume in media, the streaming and the stuff that's developed over the last several years, including podcasts. I have, so many podcasts I try to keep up on and that I love and I discover, but for me, it's like my brain is filling in all the gaps now that I don't see, and that I see less and less. Whereas Brian was born with light perception and never saw faces on a TV screen or the movies. So for me, I'm focusing these days on audio description. So I talk a lot about that on Outlook, and it's not that we joke about it because Brian and we still talk about these bigger subjects in advocacy and in the disability community, and this is just one of them for me. It's sort of stuff I've veered into recently, and having storytelling that can be multisensory and multimedia. A lot of the projects and a lot of other things that our show has led to over the last few years since we were on with you guys last have been opportunities that this show has brought us, Outlook has brought us, and I just think audio description for me is one of those things that sometimes I'll talk about it in another episode. We're talking about audio description, but Brian's a good sport about it because he's grown up with me, so he's seen that side of things for me, and he knows what things have been like since we were children, and I used to watch TV, and now we still use that word, of course, but it's different for me. So audio description has become a big thing, and just having the world understand what it is, and that for me as an artist myself, it's an art form, but yet there's so much to learn about it, and that just brings in AI too lately about all that's it's infusing all of that world with that. But I just think it's an endlessly fascinating topic, and so lately I wanted to bring on people who can share their perspectives on that, so that our listeners can learn more about that. The ones who are not in the disability community, or those who are new to some of that stuff too, who are.
Yeah, I think the AI specifically, a big thing we've been incorporating in our show a lot is these AI image descriptions with the Be My Eye through the Be My Eyes app. And we'll just, like, we were recently at Niagara Falls, and we made sure to take some photos while there. And when we come back on Monday for our next live show, we plan to read some of those image descriptions, because I think oftentimes you ask sighted people to describe something, and some people are a natural. Like our brother has always been very natural at describing movies and things, but it is a skill, and a lot of people are kind of like, it can be intimidating. What do I describe? How would I put it into words? So I think it's an interesting thing for sighted people to even maybe go to the Be My Eyes app and read some description, just to give them an idea of how detailed things can be. And but yeah, we find it interesting to read those out on the show, because it just gives people a perspective of how we can, growing up, as Kerry mentioned, totally blind pretty much with a little bit of light perception, but never being able to see. I never once in my lifetime thought I would care about having photos, but now it's like oh, it's really great. If I want friends to send me photos and all this kind of stuff, right? Because I can run them through, and I think that's a really neat topic to talk about on the show. And then we're always recording sound effects as well when we're on our travels. I think also this past year in particular, I noticed we've still had quite a few guests, and I'd mention like maybe steering away sometimes from blindness and we had a travel coach on, which was a really interesting one, Lindsay Lucine, and she's sighted, but she's been organizing trips for blind people and also helping out blind people. If they're planning to go somewhere, you can consult with her and she'll give you ideas of, oh, in this destination, you can look into this, and, help you make connections of accessible options in those places. So allies of the blindness community, as well as people with other disabilities. We had Keisha on earlier this year, somebody I actually just happened to meet at an event I went to last year on December 3rd, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, who's in a wheelchair, who isn't blind, but studies at Western University here. And we just thought to have her perspective. And we had our anniversary show in our 300th episode back in September. And for that one, we just had all the staff at the station come on the show because, they're there every day. They hear all of our shows from the station because they're just sitting in there working. So we thought it'd be nice to have them come on and just have a casual, fun discussion with them. Like, what do they think of the show? What have they learned from the show? And on that episode in particular, we definitely did discuss media and representation. And then, yeah, the point I was also getting at is I think this year we still love having guests, of course, and we're always open to guests, but we really also just like to do, as we refer to as a mixed bag Monday, where it's just Kerry and I, and then Barry out whenever we can get him on, just to hang out. And that's what I think I really like about AT Banter, and what I've compared our show to, your show, in a lot of ways, is that just hanging out, having a fun laid back discussion, and of course touching on the accessibility and all the advocacy. But I think people learn a lot just from, it's like I often say, just me getting out for a walk or being out in the community is advocating, right? It doesn't always have to be in your face, always giving all this deep education on these things. Sometimes it's the more you're around somebody who's blind, the more you learn about it. So yeah, it's always a work in progress, and we're always trying to figure out ways to improve the show, or to things to add
directions.
Directions to take it.
I'll have to be honest. I was scrolling through some of your podcast episodes, getting ready to poach your guests. So they'd be on AT Banter next year.
We all do that. It's okay. That's great. It's fun.
Yeah, I think I saw it was the blind girl chat that I saw on your show, and we ended up reaching out to them and having them on our
Nice.
So it's a back and forth thing that we.
Speaking of that, though, when I was going through the podcast list, there were a few episodes that you guys did that with topics that kind of jumped out at me, and I kind of made a note to maybe talk to you guys a little bit about them, because I do feel like some of these have been coming up more, both in sort of my professional work, as well as just, me and Ryan sitting around before any given podcast and shooting the breeze for 15, 20 minutes. The first one, actually, Kerry, you've already mentioned is this idea of intersectionality. I find that this is coming up more and more as a topic. Could you kind of give the audience just a broad overview of what we're talking about when we talk about intersectionality, and maybe a little bit about why you guys think that it is so critical in disability conversations that we have these days?
Yeah, I mean, I think because Barry mentioned that we love travel. Brian mentioned Niagara Falls. That's one of my favorite places in the world. And the fact that it's so close to us here in Ontario, where I live, and I grew up going there. But it's like, I've learned so much just by experiencing the world through travel and through my senses and through community and connection and meeting people. And so at the heart of it, it took a while maybe to know what our foundation is on Outlook, but really it's the fact that we grew up together, me and Brian, but also we have very vastly different experiences of life, whether it is because our disability isn't exactly the same, yet we both have this chronic rare syndrome attached to our blindness, but we have different experiences of that blindness, and also, like I say, that we're siblings, but yet our age 3-year gap, or I'm female and he's male. And then bringing Barry into it, just talking to people from other countries who have experienced culturally different things.
Yeah, because like yeah, you two guys, you have your things going on, and you're blind and you're Canadian. Well, I happen to be blind and I'm Irish, and I also grew up in a vastly different environment to what you guys grew up in Ontario. I grew up in West Belfast, and I grew up in West Belfast in the 1980s and the 1990s. And anyone who's even vaguely in touch with history will know about the 40 year, at least 40 years of violence we had in Ireland going from the 60s right up to like 1998, roughly. So growing up in that environment, people are often a wee bit behind the times, I find. You know, whenever I sort of come to North America, for example, people seem to be more open minded about blindness, disability, intersectionalities, points of view, all that kind of stuff. Whereas in Northern Ireland, we still have decades of legacy, as we affectionately call it, the troubles that we had. You know, 3,000 odd people were killed over this period of time in brutal ways, but we call it the troubles. So yeah, that definitely gives me a different perspective on life than say Kerry and Brian would have.
As we say, if we're talking more about not just blindness, but disability and chronic illness, and we discuss the differences there and the similarities, that some things, a lot of people think is a medical versus a social model. You want to cure, you want to fix it, or you want to just learn how to have a good life and just put things into perspective. It's like all these different things. I think blindness, there's hierarchy there, and we all got to be independent in North America. So it depends on where you grow up, what decade, what generation. You're talking about millennials, Gen X, Gen Z,
And family
um,
dynamics.
family dynamics, culturally, and then like Barry was saying, there's trauma there where he's from, whereas here in Canada, there's trauma of different kinds for different communities, indigenous communities, or racially, or
Or
culturally, or
people that have
social.
emigrated after
Yeah,
post-war,
exactly.
post-World
Yeah.
World War II, and they bring that sort of trauma from Europe over with them, and then that gets passed down the line. And
Yeah. So I think it's important that we just recognize that all of our perspectives are different. And that's why I love Outlook as the theme, because it's just like we can't all say we've experienced things in the same way. So we're not all going to come to where we are now in that with that same lens.
Yeah, and I think people all, we all want to find common similarities in each other to be able to connect with each other. But I think it's more interesting often to find differences and to really learn more about someone else's culture or someone's identity, whether they're LGBTQ. Like I just think, of course, as natural as humans, we're nervous, or and as people with all with disabilities here, we know what it's like when someone isn't comfortable around something that they're not used to. People can be scared of it rather than just taking an interest in it and asking about it and learning about it and taking a fascination. And I think, especially these days too, with just not to get too negative into it all, but stuff with the DEI being cut in some places and the whole negative talk about immigrants, like all these things about this trying to cause so much fear rather than really learning about what makes up people's lives and who they are, and just really embracing that. And I think we can all benefit from constantly learning about each other and what makes us who we are. So I
Well, we
think
can
it's
find similarities if we can realize that you don't do that by denying that we've all come from a different direction, that there's
yeah, and
different.
like to sort of give you an example of like just the vast extreme that it can go to is I'm from a country where because of our recent history, being open minded is not only seen as tricky or challenging, it's seen as dangerous. Because in the 1980s and the 1990s, Northern Ireland, you didn't want to stand out. Because if you stood out, you were basically painting a target on your back, so you were. You had to be very similar to your community. You had to stick with all the community traditions and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, when then I'm the only blind person in my family, and that is extremely challenging for myself, but also for the rest of my family to wrap their head around.
See, and I find that the really fascinating thing about this is that, it all of this stuff really ties together. When we talk about the like inclusion and accessibility, because we've been fighting for a while to just get the conversation in front of people, that inclusion and accessibility is important. And now I feel like we've gotten to a point in the conversation to be like, okay, yes, these things are important, but it's also important to recognize that at the end of the day, the lived experience of somebody is is incredibly important because, like you said, there's intersectionality and everybody's perspective is different and everybody's experience is different. And that's really important when we are starting these conversations about how do we have genuine inclusion, and genuine accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like what it opens that question of what is accessible. For example, um, something I was thinking about earlier was the Amazon app on iOS. One could argue from a screen reader point of view, somebody using VoiceOver, say on their iPhone, it's accessible. Well, it's accessible in the sense that you can navigate it and everything will be read out to you. But what if you have like cognitive issues? There's a lot of stuff, a lot of things on that screen deliberately because they're trying to bombard you with marketing stuff. But it could be more simplified. And how do you like what degree do we bring this to? Do you make it bespoke for each and every person? And I think, sorry to beat my drum about this here, but I think AI might be a potential step forward for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you found that recently, up till recently, very
Yeah.
difficult. And I, as someone myself who has is just starting to discover in my adult years about that I do have some sort of neurodivergence, things that I've noticed for years, but the things that have made technology often very challenging for me, or so websites that are very busy. As a writer, I want to be able to go to read a newspaper article online, and it's made accessible now. It's not like I have to pick up a print newspaper and make that accessible, but it's still my brain struggles with too much information. So how can we make the internet or AI, like how can we use these tools? It's because each of us needs something slightly different so that we can be at our best for this sort of thing.
And I think the companies are taking notice. I think Microsoft Edge has some reading tools in there as well that'll, take out all the garbage stuff and give you
Minimalistic, yeah.
yeah, so
Well,
people are starting to take notice.
a big thing that I'm excited about. I was hoping to actually get it on this trip in Canada, because the conversion rate over to pounds, because I'm up in the north of Ireland, we use pounds, the same as England, is the Chromebooks. That whole Android world, they're baking AI right into not just the operating system, but the screen reader now as well. And the computer vision elements, the fact that you can go to a website and literally one dedicated uh, button on the QWERTY keyboard, and you press that there and you just tell it what you're looking for. Read this article to me, explain this website, natural language. And that's very, very exciting.
It's exciting, but there's still, I think, a lot of people that are concerned about where their data is going.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
until they grasp that, I know there is some applications as well now that'll just AI will run locally on your computer
Mhm.
and not send the data anywhere. It's just local AI. So we're getting to a point where, of course, it's not going to have all the data that ChatGPT and Gemini have because they have the world's information out there. This is just local. But that data will just keep getting, I think, more efficient and compressed. And I honestly think, in my own opinion, that we're in a bit of a bubble right now. And building all these server farms and data farms and AI centers is not sustainable. So
Exactly.
I don't think it's going to last. Or what we see now is not what it's going to look like in 5 years.
Well, especially if you throw AI into the workplace. My God. Yeah, I slap an IT security manager hat on me there, and I'm just like, oh, you're doing what with AI? You're
Yeah,
telling Gemini what? You're passing our information out there, and we don't know
right.
where that information goes, and who, you potentially corporate sensitive information there, proprietary stuff. Oh my God,
Yeah.
it could be a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic, and we've talked about it, I know, on the show a lot. especially recently. And, and my kind of position on it is that, we can certainly make all kinds of arguments on either side of whether AI is positive or negative or sustainable or not sustainable. But I think that what's really interesting to me is that no matter what side of the board you're on, you can't argue that it's really a game changer in terms of assistive technology and what it could mean for accessibility, especially baking in accessibility into mainstream products and getting a lot more things accessible. And that's exciting, I think.
It is, but again, I think in my own opinion, again, there's costs involved with AI, and those costs will be passed along to the consumer.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But well, who knows? That's a whole other.
I totally agree with you. I'm totally blind myself, and I've used AI to write programs for me that weren't necessarily accessible, right? So huge benefits to AI, absolutely.
Yep.
But yeah, again, and for me, it's just like, as I say, now that my brain still tries to see visually the things I used to see, and so for years my brain's been confused by my laptop or my phone because I'm still picturing an iPhone, knowing that I know where an app is located on the screen. It's about like it's like mental mapping in my mind, and so whether I'm navigating my neighborhood or a specific place or I'm doing it virtually, it's like AI can take a lot of the noise away. It can break things down for me, and it can just give me the information I need so I don't get lost in all of it. So stuff like that, I just, it's hard to realize what it can do until you know.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Steve. You're listening to the AT Banter podcast, and I'm not just a podcast host, I'm also president and owner of Canadian Assistive Technology. Did you know that Canadian Assistive Technology prides itself on having the largest and most extensive product line of assistive technology in Canada? We believe in giving our customers the greatest amount of choice because finding the right solution can make all the difference. Our wide array of products cover a spectrum of needs. Whether you're looking for low vision aids like CCTVs or optical magnifiers or comprehensive blindness solutions, we've got you covered. We also offer hearing amplification solutions, alerting systems for people who are deaf, mobility canes, physical access aids, communication aids for the nonverbal, some products to support people living with dementia, and specialized digital accessible signage to make public spaces more accessible. We also have what we call our gently used marketplace for more reasonably priced options on consignment items. Plus, we have demo equipment available. Our goal is to provide all the custom accessibility solutions you need. Explore the possibilities today and visit us online at www.canastech.com or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. And now, back to the show.
So there's another topic that I wanted to bring up with you guys, and I've been actually dying to talk about this on a show, and I've just never really found the right space to talk about this. But maybe this is it, or maybe this will fall flat. Who knows? But I want to talk about awareness days and
are they useful?
The pros and the cons with where we are with awareness days, awareness months, and sort of get your take on this, because my own hot take about it is that they don't really do much good these days, and I could even argue that they might actually do more harm than good, at least in some cases. What's your take on the idea of awareness days and how many of them there are, and whether they do any real good?
Oh boy, Brian. Yeah, we have this debate all the time.
Yeah, because we do tend to mention a lot of them these days, like more than ever, it seems. I mean, obviously they're being talked about in the media more than ever, it seems, or at least they're being advertised more than in the past. But yeah, they really are frequent. I mean, I mentioned it earlier, the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, right? December 3rd, which is this week. So like, it is tricky because, I like them in the sense of, I do think like it never hurts to be reminded of these things. Like, so many people go about their day-to-day life. They don't think about disability. They don't think about blindness, like awareness. Like they don't think about these things. So any chance we can get it mentioned, I feel like is a positive. But then I also do think like when something's just bombarding you all the time with all these things, sometimes it can also be exhausting and frustrating, and people stop caring. And I also think, like, sometimes I wonder how often are blind people, or how often are the sighted people involved in these things, or is it more, and that's a consistent thing in blindness related things for a long time. Like, I wonder that with our Outlook podcast, I mean, we definitely know we have some sighted listeners, but like, I know there's a conference coming up on Saturday from Alliance for Equality of Blind Canadians, centered around December 3rd. And I think about these conferences, I'm like, I really hope there's a lot of sighted people there, because I think that's the main audience we're looking for. But then, yeah, when it says those days, does that actually, I don't know, again, I'm talking in circles a bit, but I think it's hard to know how effective these things are.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead, Kerry.
Well, I was just going to say, like, as someone who kind of manages the social media for Outlook, I've sort of soured on social media lately. And a lot of it is because TikTok and Instagram, there are ways, and a lot of blind people want to use these platforms. But I just think it sort of affects all of us, our attention spans, and for better or for worse. But like, as someone who wants to take Outlook in new directions and is always trying to find new and refreshing ways to go about doing our show, and through media and reaching people and having conversations and inviting a big opening with open arms to have anybody welcome to come on and talk about this stuff. But I find it hard to know. So yeah, on social media, that's where that sort of stuff is rampant, with hashtags and all this stuff. But as we see, social media sites come and go, and one is popular and the other one is taken over by a madman. So it's like, I don't know. I just think, like, those are the places where those things have thrived lately, but really, you can't leave it at that. And you have to be able to realize that can eventually, like Brian said, people get exhausted and you tune that stuff out. So it's just better to me, yeah, in a way, just to have the conversations any old day, and just to keep an open mind and have the conversation whenever, and invite people in where you can.
I think Awareness Day is probably, it gives a focus. So it does. It gives a conversation or a jumping off point. But I do think it is a very valid point to say, they ask the question, but what does that lead to? Or is it just adding to all the noise of the world that we have and everything, trying to grab everyone's attention, and then people just ignore it? Is it just a corporate tick box exercise?
Many acronyms.
It just, yeah, all these acronyms. And also as well, it kind of sometimes reminds me of, so some of the advocacy groups, the RNIB, for example, in the United Kingdom, the Royal National Institute of Blind People, Guide Dogs for the Blind UK, these different places, for years and years and years, they had what they called focus groups. And they'd invite a bunch of blind folks along to a local hotel. And I used to often joke that it was just people just getting out of the house to get a free cup of tea and a biscuit kind of thing. And you were always told, oh, your opinion's valued, your opinion's valued. We really want to hear about you. And this is why we've set this particular day on this focus group. But what comes out of it? Nothing. I'll tell you what comes out of it. They tick a box somewhere, and that gives them additional funding through some sort of government grant program. And that's it. It's bums on seats, nothing more, nothing less. And I think sometimes with too many awareness stuff and too many advocacy groups and all this here, I think sometimes the message that you're actually trying to convey just gets watered down and missed, because you're just creating a bunch of static.
And I think that's where a lot of organizations and awareness days fall short, is many organizations will post all over social media, possibly a few days or weeks leading up to the event, and then the day of the event. But if their own members and their own community aren't engaging with those posts, liking those posts, commenting on those posts, sharing those posts, if you don't have the engagement, those posts don't go anywhere.
They just die.
You're just sharing with your friends that you're following or your groups that you're following. But social media has become so popular, and the way to market awareness days, because nobody has the thousands of dollars for TV ads or radio ads, right? We can all market for little or no cost on social media.
Yeah, I wonder how much in the average population, if you just go to someone on the street, like, most people aren't going to know about Blindness Awareness Month, right? Because they're not, like you say, they're not advertised on on the big networks, or it's not a Super Bowl ad that's well
Right.
produced
Yeah.
and put together. It's these niche groups that, and yeah, of course, as we all know on social media, you see the things that you're connected with, your small network. That's just a very small percentage of what's out there.
Bubbles, yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, any given month, it's not just Blindness Awareness Month, for
It's
example.
crowded.
That's October, but of course, it's probably who even knows like what else it is, what other days fall in there, and then you fall into the problem of different countries have the same awareness days, but they have them on different days.
months and days.
White cane week or white cane day, is something completely different in the US than it is in Canada. Yeah, and I'm sure it's the same way in the UK. There's confusion there. I mean, I guess the way that I look at it is it's not just a watering down problem. I think that it also, I think at the end of the day, it might actually not prevent real systemic change because I think that's possible, but I think that it doesn't give much incentive to really push the football forward with some of these things. People just think, well, I'll give my whatever, my $50 to the CNIB on Blindness Awareness Month, and then I'm a hero. I've done my part. I'm helping the cause. And really, no, it's you have to sort of be advocating out there all the time. You can't just do it one day out of the year. And I think that in terms of how we market to the mainstream, I think that Awareness Days kind of plays into that. It plays into like, hey, if you wear your orange shirt on this day, that means that you're an ally, and then you can just forget about everything else the rest of the year. And I think for me, my hot take is that's where Awareness Days really kind of do some harm because it fools people to think that they're a real ally without really having to do the work and to really try to push for the systemic change that a lot of these issues really need.
I'll go out on a limb as well, though, and say in the blindness community, here in Canada anyway, I think our blindness organization has really let the community down because the mainstream media, they'll talk about Autism Awareness Month. They'll talk about Diabetes Month. They'll talk about these other big issues. Nobody talks about blindness. Nobody talks about White Cane Week. Nobody talks about it. And that has to change in order for us to actually have a voice.
But that's where I think it comes to that it has to come along more naturally. Like that's why I'm a big advocate for a representation in media, because I think if people grow up seeing themselves, if you're blind, represented, and if the rest of the world sees blind characters in books, and that's why I do work as a sensitivity authenticity reader. Some people think that this is nitpicky and I'm oversensitive or something, but all I'm really trying to do is, like you mentioned before, lived experience and show like I've grown up as a blind person. I don't speak for all blind people, but I can consult with somebody who is an author but maybe isn't blind if they want to have a character in their story who's blind, just so that they're not putting in things that are actually harmful and that are actually untrue overall, because they're not aware with it. And then just sort of see everybody naturally represented more, like you say, instead of hoisting these days on people and making it like we're all complex humans. And yeah, these things are scary sometimes, so people avoid them. And it's not about ticking a box. It's about just that we show up everywhere, and that we're not just be used in a commercial for the CNIB because, oh, pity the blind people, we need to look after them. Like we want to be part of society like anyone else, and we're here. It's just we don't always get that representation. So that's the kind of thing I advocate for more than an acronym or a day or a month.
No, but that's a great segue, and that's another note that I had that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I think that people in the mainstream maybe don't necessarily think about this, but once you're either in the blindness community or you're an advocate or an ally in the blindness community, you start to see it pretty clearly is this idea of this pity-based imagery and charity style marketing that, the scene. I mean, we had Angela Bonfante on a while ago, and lovely lady and stuff. And it sounds like she's doing some really interesting work there and doing some good work. But still, at the end of the day, CNIB, I don't know. They still tend to use this old school, I think, charity style marketing to raise funds because
That
that's
works.
really that's really what works. Yeah, and I mean,
So yeah,
I'm in the nonprofit space as well, and I understand that it can be really challenging when you have, on the one hand, you have this message, you want this messaging of empowerment and of ability and for working for inclusion as opposed to just doing charity for people who are helpless. And the mainstream doesn't necessarily always grok that, so you kind of have to play to the lowest denominator because you just want to get the money. But it can do real harm. What's your take on it, and how have you been kind of unpacking some of that on your show?
yeah, I mean, that is the thing, isn't it, with this sort of pity marketing that you mentioned there? It's trying to pull at the heartstrings of people so that they do, as you say, they do their good deed, they give their donation, and then they jog on with their life and they don't think about it again. And we've actually had a few times in the blindness community in the UK where we've had to actually push back against organisations like the RNIB and Guide Dogs because of their mainstream advertising, where they're putting out there like a little 4-year-old blind girl was one of the ones I remember from maybe 8, 9 years ago or something like that there. And it's just kind of pathetic. You're showing this little blind, helpless kid going, Mommy, Mommy, where are you? It's all the cliches. And this is from the RNIB, who's meant to be our strongest public body, or not public body, but public charity facing organization. There's a big advocacy thing, and it's never about empowerment. It's always about pity, and that's how they've got their coffers in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to get away from that because it is still so feared, this blindness. And I get it. Of course, nobody wants to lose their vision, but again, it's looking at it as more of just part of who someone is, and it does really always still feel like in the media that is never portrayed. Like, they'll finally have a blind person on it. And I think, again, these things I do believe are gradually getting better. I mean, of course, compared to 50 years ago or something, but it's these large corporations and charities and stuff that just, again, I think it goes back to sort of what we were touching on earlier. Like, okay, you're here, but what are the results? Like, and I know it's sometimes hard to fully give official statistics, but like, how many people are succeeding from these organizations? What are they really providing? And I think that's why, again, doing Outlook, it's always that balance of, we don't want to just do the show and just hang out and not talk about blindness. But at the same time, I think doing that also does normalize it more when we do. I just talk about, like, I was with my band and we went into a studio for a day and recorded 6 songs live off the floor, and like these natural situations that was like a bonding thing between us, and blindness wasn't part of it. But then also, I'd like to mention the blindness because I also don't want it to be like, oh, I don't think that doesn't matter, because it is a major part of who I am and it's who I identify as. And
But it's not your soul defining quality or characteristic, so it's not your multi-dimensional human being.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know, Kerry, how you feel about how we tackle on an Outlook, aside from the fact that we show up every week and we do a new show, whether we have a guest that week or not, because I think our outlook and our perspectives are important. And, it says right away in the theme song, we're blind. So we might go the first 30 minutes of the show not mentioning blindness at all some weeks. And that's because we want people to almost forget it at a time. But then also sometimes, like, the people that you're closest with, you don't talk about it enough, almost because you're like, oh, they just know us. But like, sometimes they don't often think about what the blindness part of us is as well. So I don't know. I find it's always it's an interesting balance to think about.
I think me and Barry is just in a relationship. We have this line that we say, like, have the conversation. It's like, how do you foster open dialogue with communities and and in relationships, and on a macro level and on a micro level. And so, yeah, like I think it is hard. It's hard to have this conversation in the community and outside of it, in the charity models. It's almost like it's hush hush. We don't talk about it. We're afraid to criticize those who are there. It's kind of like how we settle for what we get, or how we're seen to have to do that. Um, and then so it's like, yeah, it is hard to have the conversation at all. Some people don't even start. And I just think, have the conversation. At any given day, you might feel differently about something, and in your mood that day will affect it. We make jokes that we start the show and talk a lot about the weather because we experience weather like anyone else. It doesn't affect whether we can drive a car. We can't, but it does affect people we drive with, whether it's public transportation, the time of year, the season, where we are, what country or what part of the country, and then we feel, the wind and the sun on our skin like anybody. So it's important that we talk about it in direct ways, and then also indirectly as well. And just, yeah, we're just, like Brian said, we're there every week doing this, even when we find it hard. And some days we show up and think, do we want to keep doing our show? Because maybe, we want to do something else, or is this actually having an impact? But like I say, from the connections and things that have happened over the last 8 years or whatever, like I've seen that it has. And so I do have hope overall that this stuff is getting better.
One thing that I really like about the Outlook show that Kerry and Brian started is, I hate this phrase, but I can't think of a better way to put it, is you guys really take a big leap forward in trying to normalize what you guys experience in life, whether it's your blindness, whether it's your syndrome, whether it's mental health, whatever it happens to be, that you're just people, and these are elements that make you up. Because I think a lot of times in the mainstream media, where there is the pitiful side, but then there's the other flip extreme of that. There is the kind of superhero blindy person, and it's like, and I don't just mean in the comic book movies. I mean, just pluck a person out of my head, Eric Wahenmar, first
Yeah.
person, as far as I know, the only blind guy to climb Mount Everest. And that's great. And I'm not taking away from that guy. And I'm not like sort of blindly bashing him for that there. But people see this blind guy, and often a lot of times then look at other blind people that they might interact with and go, well, why aren't you climbing Mount Everest? I don't know. Why are you not frigging climbing Mount Everest?
Yeah, it's not
It,
about bashing anybody or any one organization.
But
But
it does my head in. Like, I mean, there's another person that I give examples for. I'm not going to use the person's name, but they spoke in front of the United Nations on different topics. Very, very well accomplished blind person. Company director, all this kind of stuff. But by their own admission, got lost in their hotel room. You can't have it all. Nobody does, and I don't know why society thinks because we're blind people, we should
Yeah.
have all or nothing.
Yeah, and I know that we've had that discussion at the nonprofit that I'm at too, and what we've referred to it often as is that in the mainstream, it's either about being a hero or being helpless.
Hmm.
Those are usually the two types of representation that seem to really get much play in the mainstream. These two extremes, and nothing's in the middle seems to really get much traction, even though that's where 95% of people are. That's where they're at. They're just like, hey, man, I'm just living my day to day. I'm going to work, and it would be nice if I had some fucking braille signage around. Like, that's it's not any more complicated than that. But that type of messaging, I guess, doesn't get clicks. It doesn't
It's
Yeah,
capture.
not
they're looking for
sexy.
a real exciting, over the top
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like there was somebody on CBC recently who, I think they were like 13 years old, who developed their own, or has a makeup line developed, and they're blind, and they were interviewing them about how they put on their makeup. And again, it was a really interesting piece, and I get it that sighted people, you can't imagine how blind people do these things when we're not it's not the life we lead. But there is still this like over amazement almost in these things, where it's just like, I don't know, like we're humans, we adapt, we figure shit out, and it doesn't have to be this amazing, incredible thing. You can still have an interesting story, and to talk like humans, and just be, I don't know.
I actually thought, I don't know if you guys saw the North American version, but I've seen the UK version of it. I thought the big beauty company L'Oreal did a fairly half decent job. Probably the best. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but one of the best ones that I've seen so far. In the UK, the line is it because it's about a shampoo product, and it's not about how my hair looks to the world. It's how it feels to me. And I thought that was kind of a nice way of giving a different perspective on things.
I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
for me, I use the example now that I carry an item around with me everywhere I go now. When I travel, I recently went to British Columbia on my own, and I travel a lot with Barry or Brian or family or friends. So doing it on my own is still risky and scary to me. But I've had so many great experiences with people who help me along the way, and I have these guardians who I feel are watching out for me and things. But it's like I travel in my purse, in my suitcase, wherever, with um, a a white cane that came with the Barbie doll that was released by Mattel last year. And I just think that's the coolest thing as a little girl who did love Barbie, along with all the issues about body image with girls and Barbies and things. But that's a different topic. But like the idea that as a little girl that my Barbie would have a white cane, it's still cool to me, and I carry it around as like a symbol that I can take control of my own life, and that my white cane isn't a sign of pity, as we've been talking about. It's my tool, and it gets me where I want to go safely. And so just having that Barbie cane it's been really cool lately for me. So yeah, it's representation in everyday life, and that I'm not a superhero. And Brian and I often make jokes that we're kind of wishy washy in my family. Barry watches us as the Kijewskis in the wider context, but knowing us as well as he does, saying, we don't always make decisions, but I do find like sometimes I feel extreme about something like anyone, but most times I'm somewhere in the middle, and I do get tired of all the extremes. So I just like that we're all sort of in the middle there somewhere.
Most people are in the middle. There's, as we say, there's always those exceptions, the extremes one way or another, but.
Well, yeah, so I think we're just gonna have to have you guys, all three of you guys, back on in the new year, because I hardly got down my list of things to talk about, and we're already almost out of time. Let's plan to have you guys back on in January and chat some more.
Yeah, we love doing that on our show as well. Yeah, just having these, not just necessarily having people as guests, but I mean, you can call it that, but also just this is how we have these cross community conversations. And
yeah, and it's so fun to be on another podcast, because when you're the host of Outlook every week, as Kerry touched on earlier, we often do wonder, why are we doing this? Are we going to continue doing this? Because, even though you're hanging out, having a conversation, it is work, and it's something you do every week over and over. So it's really just nice to have somebody else be the host, and I can just kick back here on Kerry's couch with Barry's guide dogs right beside me here, actually, Oyster, and just had my hand on her during a lot of this.
Would you say, Brian, it's kind of like the equivalent? You can make yourself a sandwich and it tastes okay or whatever, but if somebody else makes you a sandwich, even if it's just a plain chicken sandwich, it's like the best sandwich in the world.
Right,
because you
exactly.
Didn't have to
Somebody else
make
is
it.
cooking everything up. You're just kind of sitting there enjoying it, enjoying yourself. And
so thanks again. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been really nice, and actually, just you were saying about sort of, why aren't you in Canada and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to say briefly, the last couple of years last bunch of years, life has taken many twists and turns, and I ended up quite ill for a couple of years. So I'd say in the last 2.5 to 3 years, I've sort of started to find myself again, and I am definitely interested in networking and getting my feet back into the AT world and the blindy world and ID Pro and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, thank you very much for having me on.
Just for the audience, where can they find you guys? Where can they find the show?
Yeah, so Outlook on Radio Western. So if you just search that up, that's probably the easiest way. We still want to have up an official website. We don't have that set up as of now. Our podcasts are hosted on SoundCloud, but then after that, they go out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio. And then, I always do like to, first and foremost, we are a radio show. So if you ever are able to catch us live Monday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, go to radiowestern.ca, the University Western radio station. Or if you're ever in southwestern Ontario, 94.9 on the FM dial, which that's the thing I also love about being on the radio is you don't get that maybe as much on the internet with a stream, but on the radio, someone can be driving in their car, flipping through their dial, and just happen upon your show out of nowhere, and you never know who might be listening out there. So that's what I love about it. Yeah, I don't know, Kerry, if there's anything else you want to plug specifically.
Well,
I can talk about it. I can talk about it a bit next year, but I am really been excited about my music stuff. My new band is called King Orca, and we did some recording this year. So next year we'll be releasing an EP on vinyl. We're going to get it pressed. So really looking forward to that in the new year. Just thought I'd share a little bit about what's coming up in my personal life.
Yep, and we'll get you on to talk about that. I promise, because I play guitar, I play bass too. So Brian, maybe you and I'll just do a show.
Yeah, I've heard that about you, but I also don't know much about your musicianship and then guitar playing and stuff. So that'd be great.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, and I talking about media representation on the show today, and we'll talk about that again next time. I have a website, kconsulting.ca, so that's KAY consulting. And so I do a lot, like I say, as a writer myself and a storyteller and into multimedia. I do a lot of stuff, literary and advocacy there in all kinds of media.
And you got your audio description company in the works.
Yes. So yeah, I will hopefully talk about that more again as we keep going in the new year with that. But my audio description company, you can email us for more information about what we've been doing. We've done a few PBS American Masters documentaries so far this year. So we are called Picture This, ADC, which stands for Audio Description Collaborative. So Picture This, ADC@gmail.com.
Oh yeah, and send us an email anytime as well. Outlook on radiowestern@gmail.com.
And I don't have a massive, compared to what my used to be like, I don't have a massive online presence. I do actually have a blog, but I'm totally anonymous on that one. So I'm hoping in the new year to get some more traction and get some more posts up on my anonymous blog. But anyone that wants to contact me, I will throw you guys my Facebook link and you can throw it in the show notes, please.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks again. We'll be in touch, and I'm already excited about chatting with you guys in the new year.
Brilliant.
All
That's
right.
great.
Have a good
Yeah,
holiday.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thank
All right,
you as well,
you guys.
guys.
Take care, everybody. That was fun.
Always a good conversation to be had.
Yeah, I love those guys. And it just, opened the door to so many things. We should just pick one. We could have talked about any one of those things that we talked about for the entire show.
Yeah, no, definitely so many directions we can go in.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's always interesting to hear another take on just stuff that we've been talking about. Like I said, we talk amongst ourselves and on the show about a great many topics. But it's really interesting to chat with other people in sort of the advocacy space and find out what are the hot topics for them and what their takes on it on a lot of this stuff is. So yeah, I think that definitely, getting a round table together and talking about some of this stuff, because I feel like a lot of these conversations aren't necessarily happening. They're hard to have, especially within things like, the nonprofit space, or when it comes to accessibility, inclusion. All of those can be hot button topics. So I think it's important when we can have them, and we can have a variety of different perspectives to look at.
And I think, the more these conversations can take place and the more we cross post each other's ideas, conversations, right? Like if you looked at Radio Western's website or their podcast episode list today, they're a daily show, right? They have episodes every day. And there's a lot of content there, 8 years worth of content. We're starting our 10th next year. So there's a lot of conversations that are taking place. And we just need to start sharing more of each other's work. That's one way we can magnify our voices, right?
Yeah.
If not, then we're just siloing ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, like you said, the more people who are having these conversations, the more it's going to spill out into both the community and into the mainstream, I think. And that can only be a good thing.
And I think we have to stop being so sensitive and being offended. We want people to start these conversations, because if they don't start the conversation will not start.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So they may start the conversation with something that could be insensitive.
Yeah,
But
there
you
you
know
go.
what? Step back a little bit and think about your own situation and maybe the first time you encountered someone with a disability. It's uncomfortable. There's a lot of uncertainty. But if we keep preaching, we need to have these conversations, then we need to have some patience and some understanding and some empathy as well, right?
There you go. See, write that down, save it for the next one. All right. Well, any case, that went long. We need to get the hell out of here.
Yep,
So
dinner's ready.
where can people find us?
They can find us online at atbanter.com.
Hey, they can also email us if they so desire at cowbell@atbanter.com.
And they can find us on Mastodon. Follow us on Mastodon. Follow us on Mastodon. Please, 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 please. We need more followers on Mastodon.
I guess it means I gotta get Mastodon.
Yeah,
Right?
get on Mastodon. It's been
Yeah, I'll get
years.
it. This is the Twitter one, right?
Whole community over there. No, well, it's not a Twitter. It's a Twitter alternative.
I see.
It's Twitter adjacent.
I see. Okay, all right, fair. I like that. I like that term. Crazy adjacent. Okay, well, great. Well, I will get on that. I will make a note of that, and for next show, I will be on Mastodon.
Yep, and start figuring out what a Fediverse is and a metaverse and
Great. Yeah, I'm anxious. I
figuring out
can't
how to
get
follow
into
people.
into the Fedidverse or Fediverse. What?
I
I'll
don't
look it
know.
up too. I'll make a note to
It's a
Google
whole
that
thing.
there. Fediverse.
Just do a search on Mastodon and you'll go down a rabbit hole.
Okay, cool. All right, I will. Can't wait. I need more rabbit holes in my. All right. In any case, let's get the hell out of here.
Bye.
But big thanks, of course, to Kerry, Brian, and Barry for joining us. And we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions, as well as physical access solutions and augmentative communication aids across Canada. Find us online at www.canastech.com, or if you're in the Vancouver Lower Mainland, visit our storefront at number 106 828 West 8th Avenue in Vancouver. That's one block off Broadway at Willow. You can reach us by phone toll-free at 1-844-795-8324 or by email at sales@canastech.com.